let's go to Boston. Let's go to the marquee matchups because we've got a lot of NBA games that I just want to go around the horn and get some takes here. Of course, all odds powered by BetMGM. You know that. And we got a promo to talk to you about with BetMGM, but we'll do that in a second. Let's talk T-Wolves, Celtics. Celtics at home, -7.5. We've got a total of 223.5 here. Mikey B, I'm going to start with you. This game is at 7:10 Eastern Standard Time. Any takes on this one?
So the big news for this game is that the Timberwolves played in Orlando yesterday. They were unable to fly out last night because of weather. They are planning on arriving in Boston early this afternoon. That is not ideal travel situation. On the other hand, this is also the first half of a back-to-back set for the Celtics. Kristaps Porzingis and Jrue Holiday are listed as questionable. If I had to pick a side, I'd lean towards the Celtics covering, but right now, I don't really like this game.
Mike McClure, I don't love that travel situation. I will say this, though. The T-Wolves, if memory serves, didn't have to play much of the fourth quarter in terms of their starters because they were absolutely waxing the Orlando Magic. Any plays in this one?
It would be Boston or nothing here for me, Sia. It's been an absolutely brutal situation for Minnesota, not just this particular travel situation, but just over the last month of the season. They've played a ton of games on the road, a ton of travel. We've seen direct quotes from players about not enjoying it, most notably Mike Conley. So I think that this is a spot that they were glad they got that big win last night with the travel situation and everything. To me, it would be Boston or nothing, with a pretty good lean to the under, as both of these teams are very good defensively.
Tim, I saw Tim shaking his head. And Mike, no worries. It wasn't at you. It was clearly at Mark Buckholtz in the chat, who says, I'll put my child in a basket on a bicycle before purchasing a minivan. Shots fired, my friend Tim. Any take on that or on T-Wolves Celtics?
Yeah, I mean, Barner's right. I mean, great points about the travel, who's going to play for Boston. McClure's right. You either bet Boston at home or you don't bet this game. But, man, you know what pissed me off, Sia? My last year at Northwestern, okay, Mike Conley led the Big Ten Conference at assists and steals, okay? Do you know who is second, Sia? Yours truly. All right, Mike Conley has made over $200 million in the NBA. Last year, I made 86.5. Okay, I don't know where my life has necessarily gone wrong, but God, I hate Mike Conley. I think it's Boston or nothing. Last time they played, it was all Minnesota. They won that game. Boston shot 28% from three. They had 18 turnovers. Derek White did not play in the first meeting. Guys, he averaged 20 points a game in December. It's either Celtics or bust, but you got to see who's playing.
Wait a second. Okay, we're going to get to Sixers Hawks in a second. I have to stop real quick. Were you really – okay, so you went to St. John's, you transferred to Northwestern, and you were second behind Mike Conley in steals and assists?
You know, I didn't know this was going to be a therapy session, Sia. I just thought I was coming on picking a handful of games, okay? I really don't want to go down this path again. But, yes, this is all true.
That's amazing. That is – I am even more impressed than I already was, which for the record wasn't that much. All right, 76ers at the Hawks. Speaking of unimpressive, anytime the Hawks are at home, I'm just like, I mean, do they even have a home field? Like, is there a home court advantage in Atlanta really in any sport? Not so sure, unless maybe the Braves are doing super well. We got the Hawks -1.5 again at home against the Sixers, 245.5 point total. Mikey B, I'm starting with you. Any takes on this one?
At number this small, I'd rather just play the money line with the Hawks. The key here, Joel Embiid out again for the 76ers. Tobias Harris is back, which is a big help, but the 76ers are 2-6 without Embiid this season. So I'll just play the Hawks on the money line. Mike,
do you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. I think that it's a fascinating spot anytime you remove Joel Embiid. You're right, there's no home court advantage for Atlanta. They might get Melton back on the 76ers side, which I think is a plus. So, yeah, for me, I do lean 76ers here, but not something I'm going to play at this point.
Tim Doyle, any takes on Sixers Hawks?
You know, no Embiid is the difference, but you have to say I'm betting the Hawks 3 times to convince yourself, because when you bet them, you just never know what you're going to get. You know, even last game they played, they were down 4 with 50 seconds left. They take Orlando to overtime, and you're like, they're definitely going to win this game. They found a way to lose. So I'm actually going to take Philadelphia, but this is really a coin flip game.
All right. Michael McCry, I think I'm pronouncing that right. I've never seen that spelling before. He says Doyle is my new favorite capper. Me too, Michael. So that's awesome. By the way, Chris Kish, a big supporter of the early edge and a lot of the things that a lot of us individually do on Twitter. He says, hey, everyone, today's my birthday. So here's a birthday lean for the Sony, which, of course, starts tomorrow early afternoon. Brian Harmon, top 20 plus 110 on DraftKings. FYI, that's a really good reminder. On SportsLine, you can catch Mike McClure's simulations, of course, for every tournament on SportsLine when it comes to the PGA Tour. And I'll have picks on this very show tomorrow morning for the Sony Open, which will not have started because it's off in Hawaii. Chris Kish, I do like that lean at plus money. I think Brian Harmon's going to have a nice tournament. Happy birthday to you. There was somebody in the chat yesterday that also had a birthday. Reveal yourself so I can say happy birthday to you, because I didn't give you a shout out yesterday. Hit the like button, by the way. Thunder -4.5 at the Heat. Mikey B, the Heat, I don't know. Do they have Jimmy Butler back? It's 234.5. I don't believe they do. Eric Spoelstra just got paid the best NBA coach in the National Basketball Association. What's your take here, Mike?
Yeah, I don't feel good picking against the Heat, but I'm going to pick against the Heat and take the Thunder to cover. You mentioned Jimmy Butler is again out. Caleb Martin and Kyle Lowry are both listed as doubtful. So that's 3 key players for the Heat. The Thunder are healthy. They're 14-7 against the spread as favorites this season. So I'll go with the Thunder.
Hard for me to look away from the Thunder, in spite of the Heat always sort of overperforming in spots like this. Mike McClure, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm right there with him. I think this number should be 6, even though it is on the road. Again, Miami, not a massive home court advantage unless you're hanging out there for a week. So yeah, it's definitely not a situation that's good for the Heat when you've removed those 3 players. Oklahoma City actually has some sneaky depth overall as well. When you look at that roster in this matchup, I think that they're going to have a ton of success here. So I like the Thunder -4.5.
Sneaky take on if you're in Miami for about a week, how that might affect you playing basketball. Tim Doyle, what are we at? Where are we at on Thunder Heat?
I'm going to just throw this out there, okay? I think this is a possible NBA Finals matchup. I'm just going to put that out there, okay? Now, no Jimmy Butler in this game, but Tyler Hero's got to be better. He's had games of 9 points and 12 points in the month of January. You can't have 9 and 12. In those games, the Heat are 0-2. Here's why I'm picking Miami, okay? Visualize this. You're living in Oklahoma City, right? There's like hay going by. You're on top of a horse, like Old Town Road video. Now you go to Atlanta. You go to Brooklyn. You're in Washington, D.C., and now you're in Miami. Oh, like that makes me nervous. Bunch of 20-year-olds that are millionaires going to Atlanta, Brooklyn, Washington. Now you finish in Miami. OKC's better. We all know that. Mike even said the line should be different. But you put those guys in those cities, a lot of temptation there, because what happens is I'm married, okay, happily, but my buddy's not. You open up those filters a little more in those big cities, right? Maybe you expand that distance an extra 25 to 50 miles on those apps, Bumble, whatever else you're on. So this makes me nervous for the Thunder. Give me the dog in this spot. I'm going to take Miami.
Elite take from Tim Doyle, as usual. We got 2 more NBA games to talk about, and then we're going to get into our best bets. Of course, we're going to bring Martin Green back. Oh, and speaking of gurus, Larry Hartstein, the maestro, he's in the chat. Ask him anything you want. Ben Horner's in the chat. You can ask him anything you want. What's up, Taylor DeHart? What's up, Rick Funcannon? I see you, Berg Bets. We got everybody in the chat right now. All right, let's go. Pelicans -1.5 at the Warriors, 233.5 point total. Mikey B, at some point, even without Draymond, I mean, the Warriors are going to bounce back. They're going to have that game. I don't see why it's not tonight, but maybe you're going to tell me why it's not.
I'll tell you why it's not. I'm just going to take the Pelicans on the money line. Again, we got a small line here. Now, we do have to keep an eye on Zion Williamson, who's listed as questionable. But with the Warriors, they played each of their last 6 games at home, one of the best home teams in the league last season. They went 2-4 over their 6 games, and one of the 2 wins came over the Pistons. Draymond Green, Chris Paul, Gary Payton II, 3 of their better defenders, all out. I don't think their defense can hang with the Pelicans here.
Yeah, fair enough. Mike McClure, do you agree with me or do you agree with Mikey B?
I agree with both of you in a way. I like the Pelicans in this game, but I do think the Warriors will get things turned around at some point here for sure. But I do like the Pelicans in this one. It's an interesting travel and rest spot for them. They've had 3 days off ahead of this game. They have another day off tomorrow. So it should be one that, as long as Zion's injury that he's calling it, and it's not a rest situation, he should be in the lineup here. When they've got everyone in like this, I think that they've got enough depth. I think they're long enough defensively that the way to beat them is Steph's going to have a big night from 3-point range, and I don't see him having 8 threes in this game. So I'll take the Pelicans.
All right, Tim Doyle, I might have to actually put in an official play on the Warriors just so I can victory lap this particular situation tomorrow on the early edge. Agree or disagree? Maybe it's time for the Warriors to pull off a nice win.
Yeah, I think this is a hammer play here with the Pelicans, okay?
Dang it.
Mike talked about, Barner did, Golden State beat Detroit, life and death, not just beat them. Like, that game went right down to the wire. And then their last game, they got whacked by the Raptors. Have you seen what the Pelicans have done lately? They beat Sacramento by 33. They won at Minnesota by 11. Brooklyn, they beat by 27. The Lakers by 20. That's 4 of the last 5 games. Just absolute romps. They're playing good basketball. Obviously, you want Zion out there, but Bob Myers knew, right? The old GM, he was like, yeah, this is the Titanic. I am going to get off to this thing right now. He left. Normally, smart guys like that are a tad ahead of the curve. He was on to something. I think you only bet the Pelicans. You can't bet the game.
If I may, that's the guy who went over to consult with the Washington Commanders, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Best football franchise in all of the land. Not really. Maybe he can fix it. Nuggets -6.5 at the Jazz. Mikey B, I'm going to start with you as usual. This is an interesting line. I mean, 6.5 is a lot of points, but it's the Jazz. I lean towards the Nuggets here, unless you think maybe this could be a flat spot midweek.
These are some crazy stats. Get ready. I'm going to lean towards the Jazz and the +6.5. The Jazz are 5-1 over their last 6 games. They're finally healthy. They dealt with a lot of injuries earlier, but they're healthy now. The Nuggets are 7-12 against the spread on the road. The Jazz are 12-4 against the spread at home, including 9-3 against the spread as a home underdog. So I'll take the Jazz with the points.
All right, Mike McClure, are you taking the Jazz with the points?
I lean that way, yes. Big lean on the Jazz side and the under side of this one, under 237.5. Terrifying in the NBA the way they're scoring this season, but definitely lean the under in this matchup. I think it's going to be a pretty competitive game. I don't think the Jazz end up winning outright, but I do think it's one of those final possession or 2 games here. So if I had to play something, it would be Jazz +6.5 or under 237.5, 238.
All right, Eduardo Diaz, Tim Doyle says, Jazz always beat the Nuggets at home. Do you agree that they're going to cover in this one?
Well, I think you got to bet it right now. So pause this video, jump on somewhere else and bet it, because I do think this is going to go to 5.5, even 5 in this spot. They played earlier this season. Murray and Jokic both played. Denver was -9.5. And to Mike McClure's point, they only won by 8, and they only scored 112 points. I'm sorry, 212 points. So 212 first meeting, now 237.5. It just seems like a wild number, but Jazz are playing much, much better, as Barner said. The thing I love about the Jazz, Laurie marketed. He has the exact same haircut as Terry Doyle, my mom. And if you take Terry Doyle out for a steak dinner, you will call her the next day, Sia. You just don't take Terry Doyle out and just blow her off the rest, okay? So, yeah, I like the Jazz here, plus the points. But bet it now. I do think it's going to go to 5.5.